Welcome to the Industry Angel Podcast. We hear from the best business minds across the globe, entrepreneurs, social influencers, marketing mavens, and sales rock stars. We've got them all. Here comes your weekly dose of inspiration with your host, Ian Farah.
Today we have a keynote speaker, adventurer, and entrepreneur. Welcome to the Industry Angel, Caspar.
Hi Ian, great to be here.
Good man. Well, it's good to see you. You know, I'm missing you, Caspar. It's been all of 4 days or something?
It has been exactly 4 days since we were sharing an Airbnb together.
Well, I wasn't going to tell everybody about that, but I mean, it was separate rooms, okay?
Yeah, I just launched straight in there with a killer fact tonight. So yeah.
Well, actually, it wasn't just separate rooms, mate. You were downstairs and I was upstairs. Let's just get this out.
Exactly. Let's leave it there, shall we?
Yes, let's leave it there. So, obviously, we chatted over the weekend, and if you remember, you started telling me your story, and I was, mate, stop talking to us. I don't want to know. And you were like, no, but I was like, no. Stop talking because I don't want to know anything. I want to speak to you next week. I want to record a podcast. You had your book in your hand. It looked lovely. You got a great story. I was just like, don't tell me anything. I want to listen to you with the listeners for the first time. Okay? So I know nothing. I just know the bones.
So where to start? Okay. I'll start back where I was. So I used to have a conventional life. I used to be, I was an accountant, investment banker, and then in early 2000s started doing entrepreneurial things, launching my own businesses. And first few I launched didn't do terribly well. And then in 2006, I launched a data analytics company and started building that up. By 2009, that business was doing okay. Well, when I say okay, we were turning over about £500,000. Providing consultancy. And with that, I was doing that classic entrepreneur thing of working 16, 18 hours a day. We were married then, 2 young kids. They were 2 and 4 in 2009. And life was just really hard. Although, I wanted to do the business and it was growing, it wasn't making any money. And as a result of that, my wife and I weren't really seeing eye to eye. Didn't see the kids, felt guilty about not seeing them. And I had that really sort of torn thing between wanting to be an entrepreneur and grow the business, but also wanting to be a family man as well and spend time with my wife and kids. And it's one of those things that it could have gone one of 2 ways. And, it could have all gone horribly wrong and come crashing down around my ears. But what me and my wife, Nicola, did, we did something that was kind of like counterintuitive. And rather than sort of continuing to fight and argue about money and life and everything else, we sat down and said, look, this is the place where we're in right now. Let's create a story of the future, a story that's like a load more exciting than where we are right now. And so we sat down for about 6 months, sitting down most weekends, and started to say, what are the things that would make us feel like we're really living life that are really exciting for us? And we ended up coming up with this completely crazy plan to go and sail around the world. Now, I should add, I had sailed around the world before. I'd done it competitively, so I had a little bit of experience. But on the flip side of that, Nicola, my wife, she'd been on a boat twice. She'd been seasick both times, and we didn't have a boat either. So, we shouldn't have come up with this plan. But the interesting thing was, it was a plan that we created together. We both had skin in the game, for want of a better word. And we said, what is it that we want to go and do, and why does that matter? And for us, it was saying, we want to build businesses, or I wanted to build businesses, but we also wanted to make sure we spent quality time with our kids. So we sketched out this plan. Basically, we said we gave ourselves 5 years to make it happen. And we said, 1st of August 2014, we're going to be on a boat heading off around the world for 2 years. And literally, we created a vision statement, much like you would in your business. We stuck it on the kitchen wall and told everyone we knew that's what we're going to go and do. Of course, everybody laughed, told us all the reasons we couldn't do it, told us we were nuts. And the list of reasons not to built up very, very quickly. But I do have this belief in life that there might be a million reasons why you shouldn't do something, but you just need one burning reason that sets you on fire and says that's the thing that I'm going to go and do. And that was what that co-created story did for us, basically. And there's a lot of twists and turns, but over that following 5 years between 2009 2014, we completely turned that business around. We ended up selling that for a seven-figure sum, actually, whilst we were sailing across the middle of the Pacific. We created two other million-dollar businesses. We turned our marriage around, and we had a third child as well. And we just literally turned life on its head. In 2014, we got on a boat for 2 years and went off around the world, and came back 2016, and that's led on to new and interesting things. But the fundamental turning point was coming up with that story. And then over that 5 year period, because we were driven by this goal, this shared family goal, rather than fighting, we are now working together. And that just gave me all the energy, all the drive to say, right, let's go and do this. And I faced loads of my inadequacies about a leader. I learned to become the best leader I'd ever become. I mean, one of the low points in that journey was I was driving my business so hard that everybody threatened to walk out and leave. So I had to then, really sort of look hard at myself and say, what do I need to do differently? I mean, the mistakes, there were lots of them, but I was forced to go to extremes because we had an extreme goal. And that's where I learned quite a lot. So there's lots more aspects to it, but I guess that's the long story short. So
That's the whistle stop. But let me drill into a few of them points then, because you've really whet our appetite there, Caspar. So you said you left it on 2014. So did you still own the data analytics business when you left, when you sailed?
yes, I did.
So what did you hand it over to a management team, or?
So in the 2 years before we left, so 2012 through to 2014. First thing we did was try and sell the business. And anyone knows that's a hard job. It's easy to start a business. It's a lot less easy to sell one. We tried to raise investment, really scale it up. That didn't work either. But we then ended up really bolstering the management team. And I asked myself the best question I've ever asked myself as an entrepreneur, which is, how do I create a business that is capable of running without me? Because if I could do that, then that's kind of the formula for saying I take my ego out of the business completely, and I just have to find the best person for every single role in the business. And so that was how we transformed that business. That was the same principle that we built the other two businesses on as well, was creating teams who could run them without us. And I had loads of emotional hurdles to get through to get to that point. My identity being tied to being an entrepreneur, to my role in the business, what value I brought, all those sorts of things. But that question, how do I create a business capable of running without me? That was the turning point. And then with that, the data analytics business, as we sailed across the Atlantic, we had two offers to buy the business. We selected a preferred bidder whilst we were in the Caribbean. And then as we were sailing the Pacific, I'm on the satellite phone in the middle of the night negotiating the sale and purchase agreement. And then we finally closed the deal when we were in Bora Bora. So, so that was the process.
Did the management team help you on the sale, Caspar, or did you have some sort of legal representation doing that for you?
All of that, all of those things. So, I mean, we had a brilliant management team, and it was really nice actually. So I had a co-founder in that business, and he's now the global strategy officer, sitting on the main board of the business that bought us. The lady who was my COO, she ended up sort of running the enlarged data analytics division at this corporate. So it became a really nice outcome, not just for me, but for everyone else as well. But the management team were all involved, and accountants, lawyers, advisors, the full shebang. So.
Yeah. So what about Nicola, Caspar? Was she involved in the business?
So she wasn't involved in that business, but one of the other businesses that we set up, I came up with the strategy, the ideas, and she was the one who actually did all the implementation of that. And that business was, we created a network of 500 online dating sites. So doctors dating, teachers dating, Catholics dating, and things like that. Again, all using the same principle.
I did not see that coming. What was this? And so that was, you had another one as well, though? Another business?
A property business. So
Probably, yeah,
more straightforward. More straightforward property business.
fantastic. So did you literally sell the three of them then?
So we've still got the property
Okay,
business,
yeah.
and the dating stuff. I mean, the market has fundamentally changed because of the dating apps like Tinder and Bumble and so on. So that there's still a small bit left, but not very much. So the market's moved on. So we've been disrupted, for want of a better word. So
Yeah. So let's take it to the kids in Casper. So in 2014, how old were they?
they were 9, 7, and 2 when we left.
Wow, and my eyebrows raised up, and I guess a lot of others did there when you said 2, because 9 and 7, they kind of look after themselves a bit. They're self-sufficient. They can put the clothes on, but the 2-year-old.
Yeah. So it's the thing. So we spent that 5 years preparing, was thinking about every single risk factor we could imagine. Well, with the 2-year-old, for example, the boat that we got had what's called a center cockpit. So the living area comes up in the middle of the boat. So you're a long way away from the edges. We put netting all around the sides. We developed the rituals and habits that everyone wears a life jacket the whole time. You're always clipped on. So there's a set of behaviors that we instilled in the kids right from day one. And then they, taught that to our 2-year-old Willow. So, and actually, she was probably the easiest on the boat as well. Actually, it was my 9-year-old that was more challenging for me than the 2-year-olds. So, but yeah, actually, they were fine, and it was all about establishing the routines and how do we do things. That's what the trick was. So.
Yeah, fantastic. And obviously, you had experience with that when you did it previously, so you could bring that to the table.
Correct.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, so homeschooling, Caspar, did you have who was looking after that?
Yeah, so we did it between us.
Yeah,
and it's I have a fascinating insight for business here as well. That when we set off, or just before we set off, we went and spoke to the schools where our kids were sort of at home, and we got their advice on how to do the homeschooling. So we had literally hundreds of books, which my wife took care of all that on different workbooks they had to work through to keep up with the national curriculum and all those sorts of things. But what we found after about 3 months was that it was really hard trying to run a formal curriculum. So basically, we just turned around to the kids and said, "Look, what are you interested in?" And we just found the things that they were super passionate about. So my son, he's called Columbus, which clearly I almost typecast him for this. He basically said, "Look, I'm really interested in fishing." So he'd read all the books on that. We started catching fish. He's now weighing fish. He's measuring the fish. He's writing a journal. He sets up a business making and selling fishing lures. We're dissecting the fish. So once you start to look out at the outside world, you realize the education is all around us. And, we're surrounded by interesting people the whole time as well, going to interesting places. So the education is literally around you. So we took a non-formal route to the education, and the kids kind of thrived on that. And there's many different ways to educate things. The business parallel is back in my business. I used to sit down with each person and say, "What are the things you love doing? Let's get you doing more of that. What do you hate doing? Well, let's find someone else to do that." And of course, that leaves gaps. But then that just becomes your recruitment plan. So it's just finding what ignites each person. And with the kids, their learning rate just took off, and they just became super engaged. And we've come back, and they just stepped back into school as if they hadn't been away, to be honest. So.
Wow. So Columbus was 9 when you left, yeah? So when he got back, he was 11?
Other way around. So he was 7 when we left.
Oh,
and
sorry.
He was 9 when we came back. So my eldest daughter Bluebell was 9 when we left, 11 when we came back.
So how did she fare going? Because she would have went into comprehensive school when she came back, yeah?
Correct. So Candy the Bluebell, she found it a little bit more challenging. Took her, I would probably say, about 3 months just to adjust back. There were a few things where she'd missed, and she had to do some catching up. Other areas where she was light years ahead. And we're a couple of years on now from coming back, and they're all thriving and getting on with things, and not really skipped a beat. So.
Wow. So how do you feel as a father then, looking back? What do you think they took out of that? How do you think it changed them?
Yeah, it's a hard question to answer. The things that I can say with certainty is that we have an amazing family bond now of shared memories, shared experiences together. which was super important to us. That was our driving reason for doing that. We've exposed them to people, ideas from all over the world. So we went and did a whole bunch of aid work, sort of working with an orphanage, helping to rebuild a devastated island being ravaged by hurricanes, going to local schools around the world. So just giving them a different perspective. And I guess they've kind of got an underlying confidence that, we had some pretty scary situations when we were out at sea, and the kids saw how we dealt with that. And for me, that's all about developing the resilience. So when things go wrong, how do you react? And they've got some pretty strong blueprints now. It's like, well, okay, well, this thing's happened. Let's just figure out what we do and move on. Let's not throw our toys out of the pram. Let's just deal with it. So so things along those lines.
Now, Caspar, it would be remiss of me if I didn't say, come on, tell me about those things that went wrong, because I know what the listeners are thinking about now. What happened out at sea?
Well, what do you want? Pirates or storms or?
Oh my word!
There were no pirates. So, although there was one area where pirates were meant to be active, we just took a huge detour out into the Atlantic around that. So we didn't see any pirates. We stayed in touch with like detailed briefings the whole time of where stuff was happening around the world.
Yeah.
We had one scary situation in the middle of the Pacific where we had power failure and literally lost all power 500 miles from anywhere. And we had to innovate and figure out how do we do stuff together. And that was testing. We had to hand steer the boat for 4 days and to work together as a team. So, but it's one of those things that stuff is going to go wrong, just as it's going to go wrong in your business or in life or whatever. And it's just a question of how you deal with things. So for those 4 days, literally steered by the sun, moon, stars, and worked together as a team, and sort of said, okay, well, this has happened. Let's just figure out a way around this.
Wow, it was interesting you mentioned about pirates and stuff. So, do you literally think, how could I protect my family? Was that a contingency that you had?
So, what's really interesting, one of the other guys on another boat that was sailing at the same time as us, he used to be Pete used to be an admiral in the U.S. Navy. And the film Captain Phillips.
Okay, yeah.
So he, in real life, he was the actual captain of the U.S. Navy ship, and he was the guy who had to take the dead bodies back to Somalia. And so when we had the discussion around pirates early on, I said, what should we do if we're attacked by pirates? And he said three things, actually. He said, one, don't have a gun on board and don't try and shoot them, because you'll probably end up doing, unless you're trained, you'll probably do more damage than good. Two, do whatever they say. And three, the most important one, talk to them about their kids and basically just humanize people again, just have real conversations. So, I think the most important thing was doing really, really detailed briefings just to make sure we were never near any areas where there were pirate activity.
Yeah. So how do you get those briefings, and how do you stay in touch?
So basically, there's a whole bunch of resources on the web. Basically keep stuff updated. There's a whole sailing community. We were on the long-range SSB radio twice a day, talking to other boats in the area. So, there's a lot of information flowing backwards and forwards.
When you see other boats in the area, do you see many boats across the journey?
So when we sailed the Atlantic for the first time, we went from the Canary Islands across to St. Lucia in the Caribbean. So about 3,000 miles.
Okay.
We're part of a rally, so that's about 200 boats leaving mass. And for the first 24 hours, you see boats everywhere. After that, you don't see a single boat until you arrive in St. Lucia, because it's a big ocean out there. So, you don't see very much.
Yeah. And were the children okay with that, or was it like ignorance is bliss for those guys?
You know what? What was funny is our happiest times were always on the long passages, just because we get into a really comfortable routine. And, there's set times when you're going to do the schooling and meals, and kids love routine. So they're definitely our easiest times. And it's worth saying as well, we chose the route around the world dependent on the climate and the weather patterns. So we would have gentle downwind sailing the whole time, so the boat stays flat most of the time, and therefore, you're easily in control of everything. So so that the weather was generally pretty kind to us. So.
Did you come across anybody else who had the similar idea to you to travel with a family?
Yeah, no, you do. You definitely
Yeah.
you meet other people. So less so from the UK, but from other European countries, from Australia, from New Zealand. There's a small number of families out there on the water. So
When you were getting towards the end, then Caspar, getting towards the end of the 2 years, were you guys ready to come home then?
no. um, the, I mean, yes and no. I mean, so we timed it. We gave ourselves the 2 year window so that by the time we came back, my oldest daughter Bluebell, she'd be 11, just ready to start secondary school. So that was the driving force behind that because we knew we wanted to get them into sort of more structured education.
Yeah.
So that was the 2 year window for us. But actually, as we came back across the Atlantic, we said, where do we want to spend our time? And we said, actually, we want to split our time between the UK and San Francisco. So actually, we sailed the boat to San Francisco, which is where we keep it now. And so split our time between the two places just because it's a nice place to be. And I like being around tech world. My last business was technology, so it's a nice place to be.
Yeah. So what's next then? Does this not give you itchy feet then, or are you okay?
So we've continued doing adventures. So last
Yeah.
time we sailed the boat from San Francisco down to Mexico and back. The summer before to Canada and back. So that we didn't actually sail this year. So I think we're looking now at some road trips and maybe climbing some mountains and things as well. So there's other things, but I think the kids have had enough of sailing for a little while.
What about Nicola? Did you get over a seasickness?
No. We got seasick on every passage.
No way.
Yeah, but we just found ways to mitigate it really, really quickly. Which basically, the moment she felt seasick, she'd take like seasick tablets and then go and sleep for 24 hours. So that was the fastest way through it.
Yeah, wow. See, you wrote a book, so that the book that you showed me is the book about this journey then, or is it something else?
It is. So the book basically, where the magic happens. So basically, it's about the 5 years beforehand. So the preparation, the mistakes we made, the planning we did, which for me is the most interesting part, and that can apply to anyone who's saying, you know what, I want more from life. So that's the blueprint for literally how we changed everything. And then the second part of the book is kind of more of a sailing adventure. So that's more for sailors, but the first part is pretty much for anyone who's sort of saying, yeah, how do we turn life around, make it more exciting?
Yeah, so then so now the magic's happened. It's left. Is it left like a lasting feeling? Then you said you've got like a tight family bond.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's so we, it's made us more adventurous together. It's created that shared bond, I mean, it's just setting us up, I think, for the next adventures and more time together to go and do cool things.
Yeah, so you've took this on the speaking circuit as well, Caspar. So you're doing some keynote speaking. Is this what you talk about?
So I weave this through it. So basically, the talks that I do around leadership and teamwork, and in that 5 year period, that build up period, what I did was I took a lot of ideas from what you traditionally associate with family worlds and applied them in business. So how do you make sure you're looking after each person? How do you make sure you're building on each person's strengths? I think that notion comes much more naturally in family, but applying that at work. And the same breath, I took ideas from work like vision statements and values and applied those at home. And it's the same set of ideas work in both environments. I would say thrive at work, thrive at home, and so often and where I was before, I was so focused on work that I forgot to thrive at home. But we're all in the process of building two teams: the work team and the home team, and so that's kind of the key thing that I talk about building those thriving teams and taking ideas from one place and applying them in a different place.
So thinking from a business point of view, Caspar, obviously you were involved. You had that entrepreneurial spirit. You built the company. You got the senior management team involved. You scaled it up. You sold it. Is that still a part of your life, or is it the keynotes and the books and everything else that keeps you in adventures? Do you have to?
So I see the whole speaking world. Basically, that's a business in itself. So and I have to say, since I got asked to go and stand on the stage about 6 months or so after coming back, and I found it the most purposeful thing I've ever done to be able to share stories and take people from one place and leave them in a different place 45 minutes, an hour later. And so actually, when I came back, I was starting other tech businesses. I killed all of those and said, look, all I'm going to go and do is focus on sharing stories and also some of the tools and the ideas that we've developed over the past 7-8 years. So basically, building and scaling the sets of ideas and the tools. And I know one of the things we chat about is building a media channel, a podcast, and that's one of the next things I'm going to be doing to take these messages out there, because I know how transformational they are, not just for us, but for other people who've been through our workshops, and we can see the impact of those.
Yeah, 100%. You can inspire people, you can move people really quite quickly. It's I don't know. It's something where you think, well, I'm just telling the story. It is what it is. It's like everybody has these stories, but then somebody will just come up to you at the end of your talk, or maybe the end of this podcast, or may drop you an email and say, do you know what it is? What Caspar said has really changed my life. And when you get that email or when you get that conversation with somebody, it's so rewarding. So I can see how you really want to pursue this and share that story, because you can inspire so easily.
That's exactly what it is. And I realized the stuff I was doing before was interesting, but building a data analytics company, and we added value. But that's just different. This is the stories and feedback we get is just like, this is much deeper than that. So this is what I'm going to do for the next 25 years, is to build out this business and share stories and the tools that other people can use.
It's interesting because it is a business as well. You do have to treat it like a business. I've spoken to many people lately about creating a podcast, and it's a day in itself in terms of finding the guest, recording, editing, doing your social media posts. It is a big thing, and you become a bit of a media business actually.
Totally, I think that's exactly it. And the way the world has changed, I have this belief that we're all in two businesses: the business that we're in, and then a media business. And it's being really deliberate about that media business, as how much time do you invest in it, how much resources do you invest in it, and how does that link back to your core business. So I think that clearly social media sits right at the heart of that. So I think neglect that at your peril. So it's.
Yeah, I totally agree. Even if you're settled in a career or settled in a job role, I still think you should really be pushing that personal brand and sharing it, because the nature of business now and the nature of careers now is you're not going to get that 40-year service medal that I keep talking about in this podcast. You've got to keep. You're going to move the next couple of years, so don't move and then think, wow, I wish I grew my network, wish I grew my personal brand. Do it now while you're happy. Get sharing.
Absolutely. You know what? 40-year service medal, that is a while ago. I've heard that. I've not heard that mentioned for a while, but you're right. That does feel like a long time ago, doesn't it?
Do you know what it is, Caspar? I've got Jack Farrer, my grandfather's 40-year service medal from working in the coal mine.
Wow.
And I use it as a bit of a metaphor when I'm speaking sometimes, that you'll never see that. And I've actually got it, and it's quite nice to see it tangibly, like show people and say, these are like gold dust now. You don't get these anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting. I mean, I think about how we're educating our kids and how we're getting them to think about their careers and what do they do going forward. And for me, rather than thinking I'm going to be with this company for a long period of time, it's all about what are the skill sets that you need to be valuable? And those skill sets are going to change over time with, more and more AI coming in. But it's that mindset of, skill set acquisition. What's the next skill I need to acquire? And then going aggressively after that, saying, let's go and develop, real expertise in this area.
I think it's really interesting what you said at the start of the conversation about speaking to your team and asking them what they're interested in, and let's get you doing more of that. Mm-hmm. That's great. And what happens is, as you're exposed to different ideas and different technology, you get different interests as well. So, when you have these appraisals every 6 months to a year, I would love leaders to say, okay, has anything changed since we had that conversation about what are you into? Are you into AI? If you are, let's try to include that in your business. That would be great, wouldn't it?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's like so I used to sit down with my team and I used to ask them, it's like, why are you here? Why are you in this business? Why are you in the room? And really drill down and find what's driving them. Because if you can help someone achieve their goals, then they're going to be much more loyal to you. They're going to be much more engaged. And, beforehand, I kind of had this management view. Well, I brought you in to do this role. Here's your job description. Go and do this. Go and tick these boxes. And, for me now, it's just, igniting people And that can only come from those one-to-one conversations and finding out, what do they want to do? Where's their direction? So
I'm going to take you back to one thing you said at the start, and I made a note of it. You said you only need one burning reason to set you on fire. And I love that. So as a leader, that's what we need to understand about our team, what sets them on fire, yeah?
Absolutely. Find that thing that ignites the passion, ignites the joy. And you know what? It's a hard question to ask, by the way, to say, what are you passionate about? Because you might not know. But for me, then it's a test and measure process. We'll try lots of different things. And when you find that thing, then it just becomes obvious. You just light up. It's like, I want to do more of that. Nobody needs to tell you to go and do those things. Find those things, right?
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know. So just get yourself out there, expose yourself to lots of different ideas and techniques and see what sticks.
Exactly that.
Good man. Well, Caspar, thanks so much for your time. Where can we find you? Where can we get Where the Magic Happens book?
Yeah, so that's all good bookstores on Amazon. Probably the easiest place these days, isn't it? And otherwise, CasparCraven.com. CASPAR Craven, CRAVEN. And then all the usual social networks, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those things.
All those good stuff. That's what keeps you busy now as a media tool.
Yeah, exactly. You know it, right?
Yeah, too right. So go to CasparCraven.com and drop me a message. Tell me you've heard this podcast, and Caspar will sign a book for you. Is that right, Caspar?
We can do that. And if anyone's got any questions, then shoot me a question, right? I love any questions, and if it's stimulated any thoughts, then shoot me a message. And
And we'll be seeing you or hearing you very soon on your podcast as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Stand by. Watch this space.
Good man. Well, that's it. I'll link to everything in the show notes so people can catch you there.
Take care, buddy.
Cheers, Caspar. Thanks, man.